Welcome back for another helping of oysters, clams, and cockles, bringing you the best TV shows and movies weekly in an easily digestible podcast packed with laughs by myself, Mr. Ross Bolin, and my dear friend, Mr. Barrett Dudley. First time I've called myself Mr. in the intro. There's a first time for everything. Barrett, I've been waiting to see you pull out one of your patented multi-layer winter outfits and stunt all over us here. It's finally that time of the year when hardcore fashion Barrett emerges from hibernation. We've taken a step today. We're on the way.
That's true. We are well on our way. And I feel good about you noticing this because I'm wearing all it's all Howler Brothers. It's the company that I work for.
Your full-time employer.
I'm my full-time employer. Yeah. So it's this is two of my favorite things from them, and they make great stuff. So
if y'all have never peeped,
special shout out to Howler Brothers.
Howler Brothers, where Barrett throws down during his 9 to 5.
That's right.
You should go peep it. Howler Brothers is an awesome company. They've got not one of our sponsors, just to be clear, but they've got a bunch of great, incredible clothing, and you're looking at some of it on Mr. Barrett Dudley right now if you're watching on youtube.com/BolinMedia.
Yeah.
So there you have it.
But
in all seriousness, Barrett, he's a great dresser. If you haven't noticed this, if you've never watched our show or seen pictures of us, I know there's still like a good percentage of people who will randomly click on a YouTube one day and they're like, I've been listening to y'all's podcast for like 2.5 years and had no idea what either of you looked like, and now I know. And some people will be like, you look nothing like I thought, and some people are like, you look exactly like I thought y'all would. So.
At this point, if I hear somebody on the radio or if I'm listening to a new podcast, that's I have to know what they look like. That's
I always Google.
Things I do.
Yeah, I always Google their name and check out what they look like. Radio dudes in particular, they're deceptive.
Yeah.
They're deceptive.
It can be very deceptive.
You'll listen to a guy for,
So it's not.
Think he's a cool person or something. Because you know how we are humans.
He looks cool.
Yeah. But and then it's just like he's a big, turd out there.
He's just a big dork. He's just a big dork.
Big dork.
Yeah. So I totally get how you hear us, and for some reason our voices can conjure an image in your mind.
Yeah.
In your mind's eye.
Right.
And then that doesn't live up to what you see on the screen. By the way,
no, most of the time it doesn't.
I feel we have no TVs in here. We have no monitors to see ourselves.
Yeah, usually we do.
I actually feel really good about this.
You feel free?
Although I do feel free because I can't constantly look up at myself and print my hair and make sure that I don't look like a big dork out here.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm looking at you now. I'm really.
Oh, that's unfortunate for you.
I'm really.
We're
making
connecting.
eye contact. And I just. Feels good, man. So,
good. Fuck yeah.
I think the TVs that are coming back in here will be smaller, so that's probably that's
helpful.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. It's all for those of you who don't know, and that's all of you, I think. There's usually a television off of to the right or in front of Barrett to my right, where we can see what's being recorded on our video cameras that go on youtube.com/BolinMedia. And for Barrett, it's right in front of him. So you can't help yourself. It's like when we were talking about with producer Myrriah before the show started. It's like when you're FaceTiming or on a Zoom call, you stare at yourself most of the time.
Yeah.
Because we're all, vain and insane.
Plus, weird creatures. Yeah.
And the other humans, most of them, they're not that great to look at.
Who cares about them?
Yeah, who cares? Who cares about them?
Can I tell you something, Ross?
Sure, you always can.
There's some excitement bubbling up in my belly today.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, because tomorrow, it's tonight. It's Sopranos Eve.
It is, Barrett.
Tomorrow night, I will be watching The Sopranos for the first time ever, and I cannot tell you how exciting this is because it's basically it's kind of like Christmas in a way, except for that you don't know what it is yet, but you know that the gift you're about to open
is going to be good.
Everybody is saying it's the best gift of all time.
Okay. That's a fair assessment of what we're looking at here.
I guess that could potentially lead to a letdown, but in this case,
very good point.
It probably won't.
Yeah, The Sopranos is not a show that is structured in a way where it relies on things and storytelling methods that would let you down. There are not, for instance, we're going to be discussing a show today, The Undoing, that relied almost entirely on the drama of twists and turns. That is not The Sopranos. It's fairly straightforward most of the time. You know what you're dealing with. Seasons don't end with are you going to, wow, that was a crazy moment. What's going to happen next season? For the most part, that's not the show. So it's not really set up in a way where you could, I don't think it yields a lot of disappointment for people, even with all of the hype.
I don't get the feeling that it does. And it's also just a show that I've been wanting to watch for so long that it's very excited, and it's very exciting, and the fact that we are doing one a week means it's going to be structured just exactly like the way it was intended by
David Chase,
by David Chase,
and the great folks at Home Broadcasting
and the great
Office.
folks at Home Box Office, exactly. And
Box
so
Office.
I just, it's very, we're going to be doing one a week. It's basically going to be Wednesday nights is Sopranos nights, and for me, it's like a new episode is coming out every week, and the thing about it is, it's not TV.
It's not.
It's oysters, clams, and cockles.
It is.
That's the thing.
It's not TV. It's OCC.
Yeah, it's not TV. It's OCC.
Can we steal that? Is that fair?
We just did.
I think if we only take the first half. Also, HBO suing us would be the stupidest thing ever. All we do is promote their fucking shows all day. So no, I think we're good there. It's not TV. It's OCC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
We're very, very excited, Barrett and I both, to get into, and as we know, thousands of you are, hopefully, for patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles to be the place that every week, starting this week, you're going to get one episode of The Sopranos on Thursdays, Thursday evenings. Most likely. They'll come out a little later in the afternoon on Thursdays. This week, we're starting with Season 1, Episode 1. Barrett has never watched The Sopranos. I'm a well-versed Sopranos addict, and we are going to tackle each episode spoiler-free for your enjoyment on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. The idea being, with Patreon, we obviously can circumvent the advertising industry, bring you a product directly in exchange for your financial support in the form of your pledge monthly, which in the case of getting the Sopranos episodes is going to cost you $5 in the Crustacean Nation and $10 in the Mollusk Militia, where you're going to get a bunch of additional things in your tier. Those tiers, if you are listening to this episode, are set up now for you to go sign up on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. Join Barrett and I on the Sopranos watch, starting with Season 1, Episode 1, this Thursday. It is my favorite television show of all time. During the course of the run of OCC, when we were covering Game of Thrones, y'all heard me speak on the comparison many, many times. There was a point where Game of Thrones sort of popped up over the top of The Sopranos, and I was like, oh my God, Barrett, I feel almost like I'm betraying.
Doing it. It's really doing it.
I'm betraying my favorite show saying
Right,
this, but I think this is now the greatest thing ever made. And then the Game of Thrones finale, obviously, in last season, there was a bit of a stumble there. Sopranos maintained its place for me, and this will be the first time I have delved back in since Game of Thrones ended. It has been over a year, at least, maybe a couple years since I've watched The Sopranos. I am ready to get back into the world of Tony and Carmela and Big Pussy Bumpin' Cero and all the other fun characters that Uncle Junior, Bobby. I can't fucking wait. We're doing it. Finally, people have asked us to do this forever. Years, literally, since we started doing Game of Thrones. People were like, will you do The Sopranos? And we were like, chill out. We have the time. We've restructured our entire show for this very purpose. Every week right here on OCC, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on youtube.com/Bolin Media, on SoundCloud. You're going to get Barrett and I discussing what we're watching in TV and film in our personal lives, the best TV shows and movies we've hit recently, random Hollywood pop culture news, entertainment news, anything revolving around what Barrett and I are watching regularly week to week, or stuff that is crashing through into the Twitter sphere, making it into the realms of pop culture. We're going to discuss it right here on your regularly scheduled ad-based programming. And then on Patreon, we will be covering The Sopranos specifically. So go get in one of your pick the tier that makes most sense for you. What do you want? Go to patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. Sign up today and be sure you're there for Thursday's first episode, Season 1, Episode 1, The Sopranos with Barrett and I.
Now, I heard you mentioning characters there, but I didn't hear you mention Johnny.
Who the hell's Johnny Sack.
And what about snakes?
There's no snakes, though.
What about snakes?
There is a Johnny, though. Very important.
They didn't mention Johnny or snakes. Or little Mo with the gimpy leg.
Yeah, these are from Home Alone.
So, how could you miss those?
Did you know when you were a little kid?
What about Crazy Carl, huh?
That the Home Alone
what about the
movie
Triscuit crackers, huh?
that they showed us was Barrett working on his mobster persona. He's trying to develop it before we get there. I can assure you that's what's happening. Do you remember watching the Home Alone and seeing the gangster movie that would come on? It's called like Angels and Demons or some shit.
So it's not called Angels and Demons because I just had to look this up to do a tweet a few days ago.
Okay.
I did a tweet. And
tweet. Why didn't you fleet?
It's
maybe next time.
It's I want to say it's Angels with Filthy Souls, yeah.
Angels with Filthy Souls.
And then in the second one, he's watching the sequel.
Angels with even filthier souls. Okay, so I didn't know when I was a little kid though that those were parodies.
That those are not real movies.
That they were that those were made for Home Alone. Yep. I thought that was an old school movie that I'd be able to find and watch.
Yep.
And it wasn't until I was like 27 that somebody filled me in there on the fact that that wasn't even real. I guess I could have used the Google machine at some point. I'm not a smart
Snakes.
man, but I know what love is.
I know that name.
Snakes. What's that dude's name who plays
Daniel Stern.
dude? Fucking probably one of the more underrated funny guys in terms of just like
No, he's
not really
hilarious.
getting any recognition. Like the fact that I don't even know his name is mildly insulting. And he's awesome. Anyway, we have a great show planned for today. Tidbits and such with Barrett to open it up. And then, of course, it's time to close out both The Undoing on HBO with the finale of The Undoing on HBO, and we'll discuss the season as a whole. And then, of course, the Queen's Gambit finale briefly at the end of today's show as well. So let's jump right in. But first, this episode of OCC is brought to you by Echelon. This has been a tough year. All of us need to close out strong. No better way to do that than getting in shape, staying in shape. Nothing feels better nothing feels as good as that feeling of accomplishment, of hitting your fitness goals, feeling great about yourself. Go into 2021 with that motivation. Echelon can get you there. Echelon offers the next generation of connected fitness bikes, fitness mirrors, rowing machines, and their all-new Stride Smart treadmill. No matter what your favorite fitness activity, Echelon gives you a fun and challenging workout from the comfort of home. Nobody wants to be in the gym right now. It's already a disgusting place when there isn't a pandemic going on. Right now, truly disgusting. And Echelon's world-class instructors will motivate you with thousands of daily live and on-demand studio-level classes always available when you need them. And unlike their competitors, Echelon is affordable for everyone. And one membership lets up to 5 family members all work out at the same time. I got my mom an Echelon bike a few months ago when they first started working with Bolin Media. They've been awesome. And right now you can try any Echelon fitness equipment at home for 30 days when you go to echelonfit.com/dragon. That's ECHELON fit.com/dragon to try any Echelon fitness equipment at home for 30 days. Echelonfit.com/dragon. And now it's time for Tidbits and Such with Barrett.
Yeah.
Hey, we're
Hey.
back. Hey, hit us with the news.
Ross, this past weekend, yesterday through the weekend, in between the days following Thanksgiving
Sure.
and ending with last night.
Okay.
Yeah, you heard about this? You heard about this? The Black Friday, the Cyber Monday.
I did hear about this
You heard
briefly.
you heard about the deals?
I
You
think
heard
I
about
got
the specials.
I think I got an email.
Yeah.
Or two.
Maybe 2, maybe
Yeah.
3.
7,000 emails over the past 4 days.
Yeah. So we rarely we talk a lot about the people and the places and the things that are happening out in that entertainment world,
It's true.
but we don't typically, although we have before, mention the hardware. And so your boy, your podcast host, he's getting an upgrade, my friend.
Is that so?
Yes,
What does this mean?
I have ordered via one of these Cyber Monday deals out there.
What did you
I have
save a
ordered
bundle
new,
of money on?
I've ordered a new 55-inch TV.
Oh, I forgot you texted us over the weekend and you were like, "What's the deal with these televisions?"
Yeah, I was.
And I was like, "I don't know,
What's
the Vizio's."
the deal with televisions?
Does anybody know what 4K even means?
So I got. I think I found a nice middle ground on the TVs. I would love to have an OLED. True black.
Sure, we all would.
But it's hard to spend $1,400 on a TV, which I realize is a great price for the OLEDs now. They're
They've
typically
gotten
like
way more affordable
$2,000-$3,000
than they were.
in
Yeah.
the past. And with the deals out there, you could get it. You could get yourself an OLED for under $1,500.
Is that what they call them, OLED, or is that just your way?
So OLED.
I
let's
say
just talk about this
OLED.
because I do. It's they
But OLED works.
OLED
I can
is-
say OLED.
yeah.
Love that. That's huge.
So just a quick spiel here about what I learned. So TVs historically have all, even flat screens and LEDs and everything, they're backlit. So some type of light shines through a grid of panels to create your picture.
Right.
And so because of that, there's always a little bit of light. And so even when you're supposed to see something black on your screen, it's really more of like a dark gray. And so OLED, and really the only company doing OLEDs is LG.
Okay.
It is really hard to do. It's expensive to produce. And they're the only company that basically like fought through all the research and development and got to a point where they are like able to churn out these
True blacks.
OLED screens for relatively reasonable prices.
Okay.
And every single pixel on your screen is individually lit. So there is no backlight.
Oh, wow.
So when black appears on an OLED screen, those pixels are just out.
They're just
They're just they're not turned on, and that's why you can experience true black. Hashtag true black. And so that's pretty cool. And if you watch some demos or some YouTubes or whatever, and you see these things side by side, you're like, oh, I want this.
Yeah,
this is something that I want.
This is the Best Buy TV shopping experience for me.
Yeah.
I go and I stand and I look at the one on the left and the one on the right, and then I go, well, the one on the right is clearly much better. And then I do that for about 3.5 hours with 26 different TVs, and then I leave and I go home and I Amazon the one that I thought made the most sense.
Yeah. So it turns out that I supported Shop Local. I shopped Best Buy because they had the best price on. So I did not go OLED. I went with another LG version. It's what's called it's like their nano cell. And so the backlight is something called full array, and that means that it does the best job possible of emulating the OLED stuff because it can darken entire sections of the screen.
This is like how when they had
so it's not perfect.
They had full HD come out, and then there was like when things went to 4K or whatever.
Right.
There was a version of the TV that was like, what? This isn't 4K, but it will boost your HD above where it normally would have been or whatever, as close to that as it can be. They always find like, this is the more affordable version of what OLED is trying to accomplish, basically, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I spent more than $500, but less than $1,300. I thought that was like a nice middle ground for a solid TV.
And a 55-incher.
And a 55-inch, which is
good size.
It's that's. I think the current one that I'm watching stuff on is 42.
Yeah.
So it'll be and the
55 is a good spot for a living room.
It feels like it's a good spot. And
you go 70 and people are like,
the TVs that I've been,
what the fuck's your deal?
Everything I've ever watched for an episode of Oysters, Clams, and Cockles has been on like a TV that was created before 2010.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So it's been a long time coming, and I just.
Have you watched anything on this yet? Have you received it?
No, it comes on Thursday.
Oh man, it's gonna change your whole shit.
Yeah, and so it's a lot of new things are happening for this podcast, and we're switching things up over on the Patreon, and I'm getting a new TV, and I just think that everybody should support that and listen to this podcast and tell all your friends about it, and go sign up on the Patreon
so that
I can afford this TV.
Yeah, that makes sense. Last time I went and got one was a few years ago, and I went through pretty much the same process you just described. Where I was like, I found a Vizio, which is like not a brand I'm super familiar with. I've always been like an LG guy.
Mm-hmm.
And it was way more affordable. Like their 4K was way more affordable than like the other ones I found. And I ended up pulling the trigger on a larger one. My living room TV.
You have a very big TV.
I think it's 70 inches. It's fucking like, look, that's fine for me because I'm obnoxious with my TV shit, and that's like kind of my deal. Like if you come to my house and expect there not to be a big TV, you don't know me very well. I love big TVs. I love watching sports on big TV. I watch way too much television and movies to not be watching it in my living room on a big ass TV. But yeah, it's been a minute, and now when I see like the OLED, the newest ones in the Best Buy or in the Target or whatever, man, I'm getting close to being drawn back in is what I'm saying. I'm probably another year and a half max before I have to go TV shopping because I'm dated now. This was a few years back or whatever. And I want to get in a position like you were in. That's scary.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Not everybody can live like I
like
was
what
living.
Was the
with only
Battle
a
of Winterfell
flat panel TV
like for you? Was it better? Was it even better?
It might have
Could you
been
see
better.
more
I don't know. Yeah,
than
probably.
I could.
Yeah.
Because the True Blacks in that had
if
to
you
been
have
a
True
fucking
Black
nightmare.
for Battle of Winterfell, it's just a black screen the entire time.
You don't
I'm
have
pretty sure.
even
Yeah,
see
you don't.
anything.
You needed those dark grays.
It's the experience of watching a television show with a vision impairment.
Yeah.
You no longer have to watch. You just listen.
So anyway, I just wanted to throw on another exciting announcement. I know that everybody's going to be like, yes, you got a new TV, and so I wanted to I wanted to share that joy.
TV purchases are right there with like a car or a house to me. I'm not joking. Like, I don't really give a shit if you buy anything else, but if you buy a house or a car or a TV, like, tell me about it. I want to hear about it.
Yeah.
So congratulations on your new television.
Thank you.
This is big.
All right. On to my next piece of such here. You've still not watched any Mandalorian yet, have you?
No.
Okay. You need to get in there because on Friday's episode, and I'm not going to say it because I don't want to ruin it for anybody that hasn't gotten there yet.
I know some of what happens.
Little Man's has a name now.
Yeah, I heard about this.
He's got a name. And we get another big celebrity. It's Rosario Dawson. That's not a spoiler. But
oh, no shit?
Yeah, and it took me about half the episode, and I was like, man, I kind of think, like, first 10 minutes, I was like, oh, that kind of looks like maybe Rosario Dawson. And then halfway through, I was like, is that Rosario Dawson? And then, like, 20 minutes in, I looked it up, and yes, it was Rosario Dawson.
Oh, she's one of the
and
those things with the
last
things.
Yes, and she plays a very well-known Jedi to those that are very familiar with Star Wars canon outside of the main series. And this is all just to kind of say that, and if you've popped in and out of the Discord, the Quarter Strong, you'll see that we definitely have some of these some listeners that are well versed in like the Clone Wars and the animated series and all sorts of the other canon out there. But these last 2 episodes have felt very tied to stuff that happened or ended with the Clone Wars animated series.
Okay.
And so I believe that this Jedi that Rosario Dawson is playing is a character that appears with some amount of regularity.
You are
in
correct.
The Clone Wars.
Because I've seen a couple episodes of the Clone Wars at random. My co-host on RBP, Chris, is a big fan.
Okay. Yep.
So he'll play him in the house on occasion in the office, and I seen this chick.
Yeah, I feel like her physical presence. I was like, I think I've seen the animated version of this on a screen.
Yes.
Anyway, so this we're getting, while all these Easter eggs and like little tie-ins and connections don't do a ton for me personally. I don't get like that jolt of like, oh my God, they're talking to me. They're talking to me.
Yeah,
This is my shit. Yeah, it is. I do think it's cool that they're tying in like the serialization and all these connections, and it's cool that it's not necessarily all the tie-ins to the main series.
Mm-hmm.
And it just keeps speaking, and I think any big Star Wars fan knows this already, but like this side shit so far is way better than anything outside of the original trilogy.
In terms of narrative and storytelling, yeah, dude, it's not close.
Like The Mandalorian is so much better and more enjoyable than any of the recent trilogy.
Yes.
Like it's really not even close.
They were cool. Like, don't get me wrong. They're especially but even the OGs. Star Wars, it's like it's a very well done. The OG series was a very well done, incredible, groundbreaking sci-fi. Like, obviously the technology used in Hollywood, all that was ushering in a whole new era. And for that reason, Star Wars will forever be one of the most famous franchises ever. But the storytelling, even in the originals, was like pretty, like, touch and go. It wasn't always good.
Yeah.
There was a lot of really bad lines and dialogue, and people rip on old boy George Lucas for this constantly. And then they've launched into this new era where we're getting all these new people taking the helm of these different movies that they've put out, some with varying degrees of success and complaining, and others with varying degrees of acceptance. And it's just been sort of the same. I can't tell you which one of those movies was my fave. I can't remember which titled one was which. It just didn't stick the way I thought it would necessarily. Whereas Mandalorian and which I wasn't aware of, the animated one that you spoke to, Clone Wars really stuck, and Mandalorian has really stuck, and people are talking about it for more than just a couple months after it comes out or whatever, and then it fades into oblivion. Like, these are pieces of the Star Wars universe that are being very widely embraced.
Yeah. And so these last 2 episodes, 2, 3, I mean, really this whole season, but especially these last few episodes, they've just felt important. And it's interesting how they've been able to do that while also maintaining, even at the end of this one, they still send Mando on his way for like his next task and adventure. There's still like not a lot that's like concrete happening, but the storytelling is good and the tie-ins are fun. And the characters are well developed, even the ones that are only on screen for one episode.
Right.
Seeing the celebrity cameos pop in and out to play these like kind of these somewhat famous roles is a lot of fun. And so I just even though there was an episode that I thought was really off this season, as a whole it's been really enjoyable, and this show continues to hum, and you got to catch up so that we can say this little man's name on the
okay,
the podcast.
Can we do it anyway? Because it's not going to. Can we say skip ahead?
If you don't want to hear it. If you just want your jaw to hit the floor when you say, "Oh my God, I gave him his name," then do 30 seconds right now, because it is Groku.
Groku.
Okay,
that's just too close to like Goku, though, right? And like just. Yeah. So I saw. Obviously, I'm a big Twitter person, and we won't say the name again if you're now back with us. I'm a big Twitter person. I'm on Twitter a lot, and I saw the reaction.
I'm sorry, it's a G in there. Grogu.
Grogu. I like that
Grogu.
more. I
Grogu.
like that more.
Grogu.
Grogu. I can get with that, but I'm gonna. Here's why I want to watch it. And the thing I won't include as a spoiler, I don't want you to answer, is how he gets that name that I'm interested in.
Yes.
Because obviously we've been calling him what? The Child?
The Child,
for
Baby
2
Yoda,
seasons?
the Foundling.
Well,
yeah.
but on the show, the Child. Or the Foundling.
Or the Foundling, yeah.
And then in IRL, we've all been calling him Baby Yoda. And,
Right.
you know, most of the tweets I saw were like, fuck that, he's Baby Yoda to me. I'm like, well.
Yeah. But we're definitely getting somewhere.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, uh-huh.
One more question
Yes,
that
one
might
more.
be
Yeah,
light
sure.
spoilery, I guess.
Sure.
Are we making progress on the helmet drama? Have you felt any more? Is it the same situation we were in last week?
Not since I dropped the note earlier on a tidbit, or maybe that was on a Patreon episode.
I can't remember. But we discussed recently, and you seem to think there was momentum toward the
Right.
helmet coming
There
off for the
is,
sake of everybody.
Again, in another one of these episodes that heavily references and includes characters from the Clone Wars, we learn that Mando's whole like underground about like this is the way, we must do things by these strict codes, is potentially like kind of an extremist group of Mandalorians, and that there are a lot more progressive and not new Mandalorians,
living more normal lives.
But there is another group of them, potentially it sounds like the majority of them that are still out there, that live normal lives and take off their helmets because that's a normal way to live.
Yeah, because keeping a helmet on all the time is insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's out there, and they kind of like they actually are the ones that gave him this tip that brought him to the place he is in this most recent episode.
Okay.
And so, he knows they're out there now, and maybe they can like kind of like sway him over, like, hey, bro, like you can take that helmet off. It's cool. Let's see that handsome face, baby.
Yeah, I'm gonna see them argue. I want to see Pedro's like, no, I don't want to take it off, and then like another guy runs from the side and like rips it off him and just keeps running. Like, nah, you don't have any money. He's like, my face. I'm sure that's a scene that's coming.
Yeah.
What other tidbits and such we got?
Okay, so I wanted to talk recently, but pretty much the last month now, I've included a note about a movie that I randomly watched on TV.
Yes.
And so this one is one that I had on for about an hour a few weeks ago, and I've kind of saved this tidbit for a chance to where we could discuss it at a little bit more length. But the movie that I watched or had on in the background was Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Okay. This is an important one for me for a weird reason.
This is a 2005 movie, so 15 years old now. It's famously the movie where Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie met on set, and Brad started a romance affair with Angelina
when he was married to Jennifer
whilst
Aniston.
being married to Jennifer Aniston, and the rest is history. So
probably the most salacious affair, scandalous affair in Hollywood in our lifetime, I would say.
Yeah,
I can't think of a bigger one in terms of not involving like a crime.
Yeah, and salacious is definitely it definitely was salacious, but even more
I don't even know what that means. I just like the word.
Like tawdry and
nasty.
nasty and
sexy,
all that. Yes, you got it.
Yeah.
But even more than that, it was just like, I mean, it was national news.
Mm-hmm.
It was
international.
It was
right.
Like it was such a huge deal. There, I don't think there is like a what do they call them? Like they were Brad and Jen were America's sweethearts.
Yeah, that was the part that made it such a big story.
Right.
And Angelina Jolie was sort of America's bad girl.
Yes, exactly.
She'd been making out with her brother and drinking Billy Blob Thornton's blood on the red carpet and
having
shit.
sex in a limo on the way to the Oscars.
Telling everybody in front of her dad, all kinds of crazy
Yeah.
shenanigans.
So a few things stuck out to me about this movie. One, it's almost like Jennifer probably should have just right up front, like given Brad a hall pass here,
or been like, you can't do this movie. One of the two.
Or another thing I thought about is have it written into his contract that all sex scenes must be done like day one of shooting.
Just get him out of the way.
Get him out of the way. No time to develop any chemistry while hanging out on set.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure this was like an 8-week shoot. Something had to be done because by the time you do get around to them fighting and then doing another F word in the house and in the kitchen and throughout all different manner of places,
they really move.
It is like like it's pretty low key. It's PG-13, and like your palms are sweating because it's so hot.
Because
they are so
Brad
hot
Pitt
together.
and Angelina Jolie, man.
Yeah.
That's tough. That's just tough.
This
That's
is
just,
two of the hottest people to ever grace the planet.
biology just fucked that whole thing up right there. Like they had no chance.
And you watch that, and the biggest thing that comes to mind is just like, yeah, well, duh. Like, there's no way that these two people weren't gonna screw.
If you're gonna make them pretend to be married, here's the premise of the movie. A bored married couple is surprised to learn that they are both assassins hired by competing agencies to kill each other. Which is stupid. I'll say that up front. One of the things about Mr. and Mrs. Smith for me, when it came out, I remember it, and I have a lot of questions. First is I got to tell you how I remember it. I watched this with a girl in high school, and I hated it. I thought it was so stupid. I don't remember why, but I never went back. I was like, fuck Mr. and Mrs. Smith. One of the worst movies ever. 2005 and Kiss My Ass. I was out. And I don't know if it's like because it was wrapped up in the cheating thing or the Angelina Jolie thing, but I never gave this movie a real chance. And then I was thinking about it, and I was like, I don't really like Brad Pitt's look. Is it the shaved head?
You don't like his buzz cut?
But then he had a shaved head in Fight Club, and I love that movie.
Yeah.
But that's a different shaved head, I feel like. Like this one has more volume somehow.
Yeah, he has about, I want to say, maybe 20 extra pounds here in this movie. Like good weight, but he's
a little
pretty
bit thicker than he normally
in this
is.
movie, and I can't quite remember. I mean, we could look up the IMDb. This may have been shortly after Troy.
Okay, that would make sense.
Where
He
he
looks
got-
like Troy Brad Pitt still.
Right, that's what I'm saying. He's got a little bit more. He's got a slightly fuller face, and so he looks great. Obviously, he's Brad Pitt. He'll never not look great. But I actually had this conversation with Laura while this incredibly hot scene is going on. I said, in this scene right here, 2005, this movie, which one of them was hotter here? And we both decided that this was like absolutely Angelina's peak. This was the hottest person on the planet. Incredible, like just everything was perfect. The hair, the look, the whole shebang. And that Brad has looked better in other movies.
That's a very fair assessment. Brad Pitt has you could argue Brad Pitt looked his best in a long
and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood,
Yes,
smoking
yes.
cigs on the roof if he wanted to. But Angelina, this is specifically like right at the height of her career fame, and like it's not. Don't get me wrong, she did a bunch of shit before this. She's a great actress.
Yep.
And has become a great director and producer and an obvious Hollywood power player as well. But that was sort of like the peak of her. I mean, the scandal and everything wrapped up in it, that was a lot in the terms of sexiness, that was adding to her pedigree. Brad Pitt was just sort of like, everybody thought he was a scumbag dickhead for doing this thing to America's sweetheart, Jennifer Aniston. And this movie was not necessarily a high point for him. It was more of a low point, I feel like. Where for her, it played the opposite. Yes, she was the woman that screwed up this marriage, but people didn't really give a shit about that. They were along for the ride on this one. It was like the drama of it.
Yeah.
The dramatics.
Well, and the story certainly, I think, allows this movie's legacy to be bigger and better than what it might have been otherwise.
Yeah,
Because the movie is so-so.
Sure.
It's a fun action flick, but it's not anything great.
But a very famous movie now as a result of the circumstances.
And here is the second half of this conversation, because the other part that got me thinking about this is this movie came out in 2005. I'm looking here at the numbers. It did its worldwide box office is almost $500 million. That's what it did worldwide. Domestically, it did near 186 million, and this was two of the hottest top A-listers doing a big budget action flick. It was a $100 million movie with no pre-existing IP. This was not an action. This was not a superhero movie. This was not something based off a book. This was straight up an original idea. Let's get these two people together because they will sell no matter what. Let's put them in this spy film and let's let them rock. And this was the number 9 grossing film domestically in the U.S. in 2005. And it's sad that we do not get anything like this anymore, thanks to the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the assorted other copycats.
Yeah,
if you are a big name actor now and you are looking to go secure the bag in a big budget action flick, your only choice now is to be a superhero.
Superhero movies.
And it sucks. Because even though this movie wasn't great, it's a lot of fun, and it's fun to see these people do something different and something fun that doesn't have to end up with like an entire city being destroyed by some dumbass baddie.
Yeah, that's fair. The Avengers dilemma is getting really troublesome. Like now it's just like they're crushing everything they do. Like all of it is working. Even the most random superheroes they've introduced where I'm like, nobody's going to go see Paul Rudd and Ant-Man. This isn't going to play. It does end up playing somehow. And then they pull it into the bigger story. And then he's in 15 movies all of a sudden. And you're like, what the fuck? I mean, it's working for everybody. It's not just working for the studios. It's working for the audience. It's working for the actors. And yes, it sucks for the reason that you're not going to see many risks get taken. They've got this safe zone.
Can
basically.
you name anything that even comes close to being similar to this recently?
To the Marvel sensation?
No,
the Avengers
to Mr.
sensation?
and Mrs. Smith.
Oh, no.
Like, what's the last movie that they even tried where they just put a couple of big actors in a big film together that wasn't, that wasn't a superhero?
I mean, this year's been a disaster.
Right.
Because we're not even getting the releases we thought we would. We're getting them in different forms. The whole movie industry has sort of flipped on its head. But this is a different time in Hollywood. This 2005 area, right?
And it's really crazy. And because look, full disclosure, when you pull up the top 10 for 2005, there are still plenty of pre-existing IP and sequels that dominated. The number 1 was Star Wars Episode 3: Revenge of the Sith.
Okay.
Number 2, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire.
Okay.
Number 4, Chronicles of Narnia: The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Okay.
6 was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. 7, Batman Begins.
Oh, Jesus.
But look at what else is on this list: War of the Worlds. Pre-existing IP, but didn't get any type of sequel. Was just like a alien movie with Tom Cruise.
Dope movie, too.
Wedding Crashers at number 5. I would love to see the last time that a comedy made a top 10. Made the top 10 of the year.
That's a good question.
Because that's insane. That's truly insane and speaks to the powerhouse that movie was.
The
weight that it still carries.
That was like we hit this wave where we had powerhouse comedies.
Yeah,
we had The Hangover. We had
Old
Wedding
School.
Crashers. We had Old School. We had like
The Hangover. I bet that was one of the last ones.
it was. And I mean, that was a cool little era there because we were getting A-list top-tier comedy talent starring together in funny-ass movies.
And then maybe even more surprising than a comedy being in the top 10 was that a romantic comedy came in at number 10, Hitch, Will Smith and Eva Mendes.
And that speaks to Will Smith's pull, too. And
Yeah.
Hitch being a solid movie, man.
Yeah.
That's a fun rom-com, like, silly-ass movie. Everybody remembers the part where, what does he eat that his whole face puffs up and he's in the fucking...
Like a
shellfish,
mango
shellfish or something. I don't know what he's allergic to, but no, that's a good movie, man. And what's his name? Paul Blart.
Kevin James.
Kevin James is in there. He does well. I like that movie. I'll watch. That's one that if I flip past it on TV, I'll sit for a second, get a little giggle in with Will. It's weird to love Will Smith as much as I do, and also just like I don't think I'd be comfortable with him in person.
So just to pull 2005, the more original movies on that list. We had War of the Worlds, Wedding Crashers, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and Hitch. Now let me read you 2019's. Avengers Endgame, The Lion King, Toy Story 4, Frozen 2, Captain Marvel, Star Wars Episode 9, Spider-Man Far From Home, Aladdin, Joker, and It Chapter 2.
Okay,
It's
that's
just
kind of
depressing.
That's pathetic.
Yeah.
That's really sad.
Like you basically don't get to crack the top 10 anymore unless you're a sequel.
Hey, are you a redo?
Or some
Get your
type.
ass in here. Everybody else, fuck off. Yeah, that stinks, man. And what really stinks about it is that they're seeing so much success in that top 10 area.
Right.
God knows how many of the top 100 end up being remakes, reboots, reshuffles of existing IP.
And I mean, we thought it was bad. Now these studios are going to be even more risk averse as they try to make up for this year.
Yeah.
And it's just going to get even worse. They're not going to throw any money at stuff that they don't trust.
That's why we need to support indie films.
Yeah, gotta support them.
I suppose. Sport. Any other tidbits and such?
No, that wraps it up for the day.
Another glorious segment of tidbits and such with Barrett. This episode of OCC is also brought to you by Felix Gray glasses. There are a lot of blue light glasses on the market. To lump all blue light glasses together, though, is like lumping Honda Civics in with Corvettes as cars. Screens produce most blue light at a certain point in the spectrum. Your computer screen, your cell phone screen, all the screens you stare at all day long, every day, 455 nanometers. Most clear blue light glasses filter 2 to 3% of the blue light from the screens. Felix Gray filters 15 times more. High-quality frame materials make Felix Gray durable, super lightweight, and they can be adjusted to fit your face very easily. Felix Gray filters 15 times more blue light from screens than other blue light lenses. The original optical lenses relieve most eye strain symptoms from daily screen time. We're all stuck staring at these screens this year, keeping up with our families, doing meetings for work. It's like legit 10 hours a day for me, and I definitely experience the eye strain symptoms by the end of the day. I've been wearing contacts since I was like 12. I can't see shit without contacts or glasses. When my eyes are worn out at the end of the day, I turn to Felix Gray. I have the Nash frames. I have the Faraday. They're awesome. I've had them for years. Their more advanced sleep glasses relieve serious daily eye strain. They were especially designed for late-night screen time to improve sleep. If you are like me and watch a bunch of TV or movies or play video games before bed, the Felix Gray nighttime glasses are phenomenal. The sleep glasses, as they're called. They feature highly curated, timeless styles made from Italian acetate for stylish, durable, lightweight, super comfortable glasses. They're the industry-leading blue light lenses. They come standard at $95, or you can add your prescription at checkout starting at $145. Join the 250,000 people that report noticeable relief from screen time with their glasses from Felix Gray. Shop 15% off site-wide now through December 2nd. Go to felixgrayglasses.com/OCC to shop better blue light glasses at their best price ever. That's felixgrayglasses.com/OCC for 15% off site-wide through December 2nd. Free shipping, free returns, free exchanges. felixgrayglasses.com/OCC. Let's talk about the Undoing finale.
Let's do it.
Barrett caught up super quick.
And I don't want to undo it. I want to do it.
Let's do it.
Okay. Yeah. So
you got all the way caught up to speed.
yeah, last week I hadn't seen a single damn episode, Ross.
You put me to shame. Zoomed through them all.
And then the group, they left on Thanksgiving. The next day, I said, put that show on.
Put that shit on now.
And we watched 2 episodes on Friday, 3 on Saturday, and then we were all geeked up for the finale on Sunday, man.
You ended up watching the finale before me, which is really funny. I didn't get to see it till last night. So, I was seeing all these tweets and shit, and I was like, God, I can't wait to see how this...
So, yeah, I just, first and foremost, I'll just say, you guys were right to tell me to jump on this show. It was wildly addictive, obviously. Very entertaining. I loved that it was 6 episodes to tell the story. But by nature of how fast I watched it, when it was all said and done, I actually felt like I had watched a movie, and really instead, and this had movie vibes to me. This is something that I thought 6 episodes was perfect, but in another year, in another universe, I think this could have easily been adapted into a movie instead of a little miniseries
yeah,
as well.
Absolutely.
You mentioned something like Unfaithful with Diane Lane and Richard Gere,
which is I love that movie. I know it's fucked up, but I love it.
And also on Sunday, I spoke last week about how this one had finally been pushed over the line and pushed to my watch list by so many people word of mouth. And by Sunday, my parents were talking about it. Laura's mom was talking about it. My fantasy football team co-owner was like, I can't wait for the Undoing finale tonight.
Yeah.
It felt, we talk about how few and far between going forward we're going to get those moments that feel like those monocultural, everybody's in on this, everybody's watching this.
Yes.
And you had a little bit of that with Queen's Gambit, but by its Netflix nature, it was a little bit more scattered. Some people were done with it in 2 days. Other people,
some
took
people
3
are still
weeks.
watching it or just starting
right.
now.
So
yeah.
it's got that weird gap. But for this one, released over the course of 6 weeks, by the 6th week, everybody's caught up, everybody's ready for the finale, and it felt very fun. I felt like in this, this world where we don't really get to see anybody all that much, that I was kind of part of the group.
We're all on the same page.
Part of the community watching this at the end and being excited about what was going to happen. So that was really fun.
Were you, obviously the ending, The Undoing being a 6-part mini-series on HBO starring Nicole Kidman and Hugh Grant and a crime that takes place in their relationship. If you don't want spoilers for that, you're going to want to bounce because we're going to be doing spoilers the rest of this little conversation here. By the end of it, I don't think most people, it wasn't a shocking twist, right? That in fact Hugh Grant, her husband, was the murderer all along.
That's correct.
Because we'd gotten in episode 5 that piece, that piece of the puzzle from his mother, telling her, he never experienced, and what is the line? Neither guilt nor grieving or whatever the shit. I totally whiffed right there. I apologize, but y'all know what I'm saying.
He never felt remorse. He never felt, and he didn't know how to suffer. He felt neither.
He was a sociopath, is what she told her. But there was like, it was, neither guilt nor grief. There we go.
Guilt nor grief. Yeah.
And, the question, the only real question going into the finale for me was, because I knew it wasn't the son.
Yeah.
I knew the kid didn't do it, and here's why. Kid, small boy, little bitty bitch arms. That's a big hammer, dude. That's a big hammer. And man swung it like 15 times. That kid didn't have it in him. He never showed that type of like, but the kid was interesting because he was from the first episode suspicious. He was being weird when the cops came around. You knew there was something with the kid.
Yeah. And so like I said on this, I did say on our Patreon episode, but I think that the ending of episode 5, where Nicole Kidman, where Grace finds the hammer in his violin case, was supposed to maybe tease out, like, oh my God, was it him? Was it the kid?
Was it the kid? Yeah.
But
that was a very small little thought.
Yeah, and really, if you thought back, and although they eventually tell you that the son found the hammer out at the lake house, what we had thought about was like, oh, well, he comes back into his son's room. Remember that? How he like says goodbye kind of in a way, and that was weird.
Yeah.
And so I thought that maybe he stashed the hammer in the violin case at that point. But there were plenty of everything at that point was very much pointing towards
Hugh Grant.
It's definitely Hugh Grant.
The only question
rest
I
is,
had
is letting
was
everybody else figure this out and how they end up dealing with it.
I was wondering if going into the finale, if Hugh Grant's mother was going to end up being a reliable narrator, or if perhaps there was something wrong with her, and that ended up very quickly. It became obvious that what we were looking at here. So the fun part of the finale, being void of sort of surprise, was watching Nicole Kidman navigate what to do in court.
Yeah.
As she's realizing, oh my God, he is a sociopath, and he's going to get away with this if I don't do something drastic. That's when she goes and gets her blonde friend, who's a very recognizable actress whose name is slipping my mind.
She was fantastic, by the way. Loved her.
Was very good as a little side character.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She plugs her in with, frankly, a lot of information that no one else could have had, that apparently doesn't need an explanation in court, which was interesting.
That was interesting.
That you can just, then they explain it. They're like, haha, because the defense called her up, like she can be asked anything without objection, like,
right.
Hoo-hoo. Which then I'm like, well, why was their lawyer that dumb if she was as good as she is at her job to get played by, but I get it.
Yeah,
she's
she got
a trained psychologist. She's very, very good at her job, even though her sociopath husband was able to, and keep in mind, part of the sociopath thing, and this is often the case with serial killers, they learn, study, and are able to fake it really well. Like, that's part of the puzzle that you need if you want to be a successful sociopath. You have to be able to convince people that you're not a sociopath, or else you're identified as a sociopath, and then bad things happen. This dude faked it very well. His whole life with Nicole Kidman, he was able to convince her that, first of all, he didn't have a sister that died, that it was a dog that died, that he was blamed for. And then that he had, obviously normal emotions and feelings, and that ended up being not actually the case. And so two interesting things for me, watching her figure it out and how to handle it in court, and then watching Hugh Grant sort of go from like, here's the mask I wear every day and the way I present myself to the world, to like derailing some. And by the time he's in the car ride with his son, he's in like full fuck it mode.
Yep.
And that was great. That was very well acted by him. For it to be more subtle and not over the top, to be realistic in the way I think that I would react if I was a similar human being, that was cool, man. It was just very, very well done to me. And people were low as shit on this finale, by the way.
Were they?
It got ripped a lot.
Huh.
For like thinking it was smarter than it was and shit. And like, this is the type of thing about critics that just bums me out, because in my opinion, this was the way to do the finale. If you go too hard, if you're like, well, no, we need like a huge fucking twist, you can blow it so easily.
Were people that were low on the finale expecting it to not be Hugh Grant at the end?
I don't really know what they wanted.
To not be Jonathan?
I don't really know, but there's a lot of, like, I'm looking at an article on Vulture. The Undoings fall from grace.
Because her name's Grace.
Oh, yeah. That's good stuff.
So while you look at that and give me a taste of
What they think.
what the critics had to say,
Mm-hmm.
let me start speaking on Hugh Grant because
Oh, this is what they. Okay, go ahead.
No, let's hear
Okay.
it. Let's hear it.
They called it one extended red herring disguised as a limited series.
Okay.
So,
Sure.
yes, but also like
It was a
that's
limited
what a
se- yeah.
mystery crime thriller
It was a great
is.
mystery, and it was a limited series. It's not like they dragged this out over 10 episodes.
Yeah, like why are you complaining about this? This
Yeah.
is the good stuff. Like leave it alone.
So, okay, this show did a lot of things well. Maybe the best move that it made was the casting of Hugh Grant
I totally agree.
because
That's a revitalizing role right there.
What they needed here to play out this red herring, if you will,
Mhm.
they needed somebody that you needed a preconceived notion about, that the audience had a preconceived notion about.
That he
And
couldn't be the bad
We
guy.
love Hugh Grant. He
Yeah.
is one of the most charming actors out there. He does his thing, and he had toned down the Hugh Grantness in this, admittedly, but he's still Hugh Grant. We like this guy. He's still that.
You know when you
he still
saw
has
it?
those little jokes. He still has that. He still has that charm about him.
When the lawyer took him on TV to like, charm the
Mm-hmm.
world basically, then you saw more Hugh Grant. Like the classic Hugh Grant that's like super likable and it's that boyish charm and is
Yep.
like handsome.
Has a little bit of a stutter to kind of talk like
Yeah, it's
you know,
a little,
the-
a little bit awkward and uncomfortable or
little bit
whatever, but like so
uncomfortable,
it
but
makes him a
it's
little more
very endearing.
relatable. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
endearing. That was the only time you really saw it come out, this was. I mean, and one of the things that I just pulled up as I was Googling was like, it's on NPR. It's No More Mr. Nice Guy. Hugh Grant embraces the blessed relief of darker roles.
Yeah.
And like, if you can get a role like this and kind of flip your career into a different space as an actor, you can revitalize it. And
Well,
he's not been like a massively important person in the last decade.
No, and it's especially nice when the role still plays to your strengths, which is that kind of
Being charming,
that
being
charm,
likable.
that being likable, and that was very important for the series, so that through the first 4 episodes, we kept questioning everybody else. We kept saying, "I believe this guy. There's no way he could have done it." You know, so we needed that. We kind of needed that knowledge of who we expect Hugh Grant to be to really go there and buy into that and make excuses for him. And look at everybody else, and that was great.
And they kind of made you think like maybe his wife was losing her mind a little bit.
Yep.
Like, she was kind of having these issues with
or
like,
they could have been her potentially.
Honest to God, that was for me and the girlfriend the
for
prevailing
like 2
theory.
episodes. That
At
was
the end, in the finale, even though we were like, is it going to be her? Is she flipping it on him so that she can get away with it? Like we obviously saw the footage of her in the street walking. And then obviously they figured out that she walked there often, and that was less suspicious, which seemed like a really weird, easy write-off for like. There was a lot. Like, look, the show was it was pointed at for having like logic gaps in the story, and
There's one big one that we'll get to.
okay,
But
I look, I'll be honest, that didn't bother me much. Unless it's just like over the top idiotic, which maybe yours is, and I haven't thought of it. We'll see. It doesn't bug me anymore if shows take liberties with the the jumping of the story to like get it to be better.
Mhm.
If you kind of force stuff and it's like, wait, what? How? I don't care. Do it. Whatever. Fine. That's better than you writing some terrible shit and then us having to watch that unfold. So
But
I end up being cool with it.
There at the end, man, like it was shocking to see how like dead Hugh Grant could look in the eyes. Like
He went all the way in.
He went all the way in. It was unbelievable, and there was in the back half of the finale. One of the things that was running through my mind was as they started to unfurl the events of the night. They were giving them to you in the little pieces. They were filling in the story, and at first I was like, "Oh, I actually don't want them to do this because it's freakier to think about." What maybe happened, like to just kind of have to put it in your mind what this guy did.
Which is what we did for 5 episodes, basically.
Which is what
with
we did for
different
5
characters.
episodes. And so at first I kind of like bristled against that. And I was like, no, don't show us. Just let it simmer, let it sink in, let us have to think about it. But by the end,
When you finally get to see it.
when they do go all the way and they show it, I thought they made their point well and that they communicated that the whole thing, one of the big themes of this series, which is that like literally anybody can snap, and that when you're dealing with a sociopath, they it can be your child's oncologist. It can be these guys that are unbelievably charming and have their lives put together and seem so perfect and are involved in happy marriages and have wonderful kids. And like this man, this dude, can smash somebody in the face with a
Barrett,
sculpting hammer
it's
11
the idea
times.
that guy, your kid's oncologist, could be the scariest person you know because they're so unassuming and they're so. In the case of like, all right, I'm gonna. A lot of this has to do with narcissism, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Hugh Grant did a lot of research on narcissists, and I'm going to read you a little quote from NPR here in a second. But one of the things that was so fascinating about his character was that doctors in particular, and a doctor curing cancer in children, narcissists feed off of the emotion and the power they get off of making others feel things.
Mm-hmm.
That would be perfect for a narcissist to achieve that level of a job in the medical field, to be a doctor curing children's cancer. It's just a perfect shield. I'm going to read you the quote now from NPR on the research that Hugh Grant did for his role as the oncologist in The Undoing. He said, "I'm pretty good at narcissists because there's plenty in my business. I've also spent a good deal of the last decade surprisingly close to politicians, and they rival anyone I know in show business for narcissism. I'm a great believer in whoever said, politics is show business for the ugly. That is absolutely true. Extraordinary egomania going on there. So I've seen a lot of that stuff up close. The bit I didn't know a lot about was doctors, and at what point their marvelous abilities to cure can curdle them into something a little creepier, where the ego starts to take over. It's more about, I'm such a wonderful doctor, and I'm not sure I really care if this person lives or dies as long as I can test my new theory and then win another prize or get another chair of some teaching hospital or whatever. And so I researched that a bit. I talked to a lot of doctors in the UK and then in New York, and they were all much too nice. They were lovely people who I keep in touch with to this day. And then finally I found one who wasn't an oncologist at all. He worked in another field. My brother who lives in Manhattan and his wife had said, you need to meet this guy because he's the one that all the ladies want to go for their knee operation, even when there's nothing wrong with their knee. So I went to see him, and he was very charming and well-dressed and likable, and I thought he was very useful to me. I don't doubt he's an absolutely wonderful doctor, but you could see some narcissism there as well." Just an incredibly interesting interview all around.
Under the bus, eh?
Yeah. So that guy listened to the NPR interview and was like,
Hey.
fuck you, Hugh. Fuck you, as Larry David would say. So, yeah, just that piece of the show, and as a man especially, and as a man who now, I've seen some shit. I'm 33. I've watched a couple people derail. All right? I've seen a couple of narcissistic meltdowns. In my life, I've seen people wreck their families. I've seen a couple of these situations where, like, they're out there, man, in big numbers. And it's just a matter of trying to find one that doesn't end up, beating his mistress to death with a hammer.
Yeah. But that in the end, that final scene really haunted me, and it was terrifying and shocking. And
the one where he killed her?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fucked up. Well, but it was also like being a narcissist, him being a narcissist, the second she started threatening his family, it was over. Like, she was fucking dead. Like, that guy was going to kill her to protect himself.
Mm-hmm.
Easy. Now, her being, like, mentally unwell is another factor that you kind of forget. But she wasn't well. She was undergoing treatment and shit. He was just using her because she was very, very hot, basically. But the second she went at him with a hammer, it was over. The narcissistic dude was going to snap. So, now, all around, this show ended up being very, very exciting. This was cool, man. I like the fucking drama of this stupid affair shit. Like, I don't want to endure it in my life. I like watching it play out on TV with very attractive people and scandal and murder. And watching the kid drive around with him was sad. That was sad. Watching him try to, like, spend this last few minutes with his son in his fake little life, in which he's also giving you signs that he doesn't actually give a shit about the son, that he's just a monster, right? He's just basically a monster trying to exert the last little bit of control he can before it's over, before the ride's all over.
Yeah.
And then he gets up on the bridge. That was a good little turn to touch on one. This is the last thing I have a point on. He gets up on the bridge, and the son is like begging him not to jump, right? Because you don't want
Right, you still don't want your dad to kill himself.
Of course
right?
not.
Yeah.
And then the helicopter was so fucking cheesy. Them being able to follow the cop helicopter with their helicopter because her dad just happens to be like a billionaire that we don't know anything about at any point in the show. There's never explained like who is her dad? Why does he have all this money? Her landing on the bridge though, and then running to him and the child, and like I was confused. Like, did she think he was gonna take Henry with him off the bridge? Did she think Henry might jump? She just didn't want Henry to see it because she'd be scarred. I guess a matter of all three could be the case. But watching him see her, watching Hugh Grant see his wife running towards him and have the moment where he's such a fucking twisted psycho that he's actually convinced himself that she's running for him.
Oh, yeah.
And he kind of starts to smile.
Yep.
And then she gets closer and it's all about Henry. And then you realize he's starting to realize that. And he goes from like the Grace, I love you, to like, Grace, like full freak out. And you're like, oh my God, bro, this is fucking dark. It was just so cool to see him flip that. And I think you're totally right about one of your first points. This plays on a totally different level because it's Hugh Grant. I've never seen this dude come off as even mildly menacing.
Right.
And by the end of the series, he's a full-blown monster.
Yeah.
That was really cool to watch. So The Undoing on HBO was thoroughly enjoyable, and it's one that I'm very, very glad enough people brought up and that I dove in on, and I'm glad we got you in on it. And it did end up being sort of this phenomenon that millions and millions and millions of us all sort of talked about and watched at the same time. So there we go. We got one. Barrett, any other points on The Undoing?
I did want to. I thought the portrayal of Haley Fitzgerald, the defense attorney, was really interesting and really good and really well done. Although many characters in this show, including the original lawyer, who was the guy from The Great, he was the head of the Russian army. That's a British dude. Haley Fitzgerald was a British actress. Nicole Kidman is obviously Australian. Hugh Grant is British. Anyway,
the kid was British.
The kid is Noah Jupe is British. Anyway, he actually probably had the best American accent because there were other times, especially with the defense attorney, where some British was really coming through. And I don't know. I just think being a defense attorney is a fascinating thing because by the end, when she looks over at him and she's like, "You lost her because you couldn't get rid of the fucking hammer."
Like, how stupid can you be?
How stupid can you be? It's almost like an acknowledgement of like,
I do this because
I kind of knew you were guilty the whole time in a way.
Not I kind of. That was I knew you were guilty the whole time. I was trying to save you, you moron. How did you blow this for both of us?
Yeah.
And it really put her back into the because that's one of the questions about being a defense attorney, right? One of the conundrums is how do you represent guilty people?
Yeah.
Or people that you know or think might be guilty. And in the case of this particular defense attorney, what was her name again?
Haley Fitzgerald.
Haley Fitzgerald. She clearly didn't care morally about whether or not her clients were guilty. It was about trying to present the strongest case and be a winner and succeed. She was known as one of the top attorneys in New York City.
Yeah, and yet somehow I don't necessarily fault these people for doing this job.
No, well, because someone has to do the job.
Well,
it's part of our system.
like, right? Yeah, exactly.
You defend your client to the best of your ability, regardless of their guilt.
Yeah, and so even though the job here, and maybe I'm just like making excuses. I don't know why I feel this way. It probably has something to do with my I kind of have an issue with authority in general. But
you don't have to psychologically profile yourself.
But like, yeah, you. It's important that somebody puts the burden of proof back on the state, or else nobody would ever get acquitted in a case.
This is how...
And all innocent people that were accused of something would be found guilty because there weren't any good defense lawyers to make sure that the state was doing their job properly.
This is how the American justice system works, man.
So
this is it. So I'm not saying I fault her. It was just cool to see, like...
It was all very interesting.
She was acknowledgement that she fucking basically knew.
And I loved what she said, too, about how her job... Like when she was originally having the conversation with Grace, she's like, I'm not getting you your life back. I'm not changing anything that was done. I am creating muck. Yes. I thought that was a really great way of putting it, and I like watching all that play out.
Muck. That's what I can give you. Muck.
Yeah, she said that really well, too. Donald Sutherland's character didn't really care where the money came from. I love seeing amazing New York real estate. And
I didn't really care either. It was just an interesting thing for them to not give us any detail on.
Lavish places in a city that is unaffordable. It's amazing. And that brings me to another point here, and the show even kind of has a moment of self-reflection on this. But look, this story... The characters that we were made to care about and the characters that we were watch, this story is focused on the unraveling lives of extremely wealthy and privileged people.
Yes.
And it really spends very little time on the people most affected.
The victims.
The victims. Miguel, his mom, his dad, the people that aren't protected and supported and embraced by wealth and money and the luxuries that those things.
Well, in this
lend you.
case, they actually were, but so that they could be used, sort of, basically.
And so, you know,
by Hugh Grant.
It's 2020, and once your ears are tuned into this type of thing, it is hard. It's hard not to think about the fact that we do constantly go into shows like this, and what we care about is the rich people. And the show even mentions that there's that line where they're talking about how Haley Fitzgerald mentions that rich people are so entitled and think they can get away with it, and that's because they usually do. And on the TV, it's like one of the news reporters is like, we constantly say, you know, that we want to stick it to the rich.
Yeah.
But we never do.
Right.
And that's so true. And that it's so American.
Yeah.
And what it really makes me think about is this like ruse that can be played upon you, especially when you're young. And I'm talking about this from my own experience. But like the reason that I felt like I was a Republican when I was a kid, when I was a young kid, is because I imagined myself to be fabulously wealthy one day, and I wanted to and I didn't want to have to pay 50% tax.
Well, and all fabulously wealthy people, for
Right?
the most part, are Republicans. So a
So I'm saying,
lot
because
of the rich people in the world are...
Because you're voting with your wallet.
Yes.
And so it's
And
really
out of
it's
selfishness.
this really funny mind game that gets played on you as a consumer of American culture. Is it like even those of us that are not rich, being that wealthy is hitting the lottery. It's never going to happen for 99% of us.
Well, and it's also
And
just
yet
that isn't the goal.
we
Like, if
cling
life's
to
only
this.
goal is monetarily driven, you're fucked.
And yet we cling to it and we love it and we want to watch, you know, wealth porn, whether it's Succession or whether
For
it's
sure.
this show. And it's just this really amazing like mindset that we have as Americans that like even though we bristle against people being so unbelievably wealthy, the Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerbergs of the world,
The Wall Street
who have
people.
all the people on Wall Street that just have so much wealth.
Sure.
We never really do anything about
Well,
it.
it's still...
We constantly support these people. We
it's
constantly
the American
defend
dream
and
still.
protect the rich because of this American dream.
Yeah.
All of that circling back into the fact that like it's okay to want that. It's okay to love watching that. It's okay to aspire to these things. But to wrap up this little pieces of social justice conscious here.
Yeah.
It's like this whole thing folds into why people have been so upset about 2020. It's because as Americans, as young people, we're sold this bill of goods that tells us that we can do this. And yet when we look into the system, when we look into the back end, when we look into the algorithm
You
and
find
the
out
program,
you actually can't really.
only some people can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And that's why people are
the
pissed.
upsetting thing. Yes, it's that when you look into the behind the machine, the inner workings of it, you realize, wait, I was never able to win this.
And it's even it's even okay
For a lot
by
of
the way,
people, for most
I just want to
Americans.
say, like, it's totally fine to be privileged and to come from money and to do all that stuff. Like, and nobody is good. I don't want to take away those head starts or those privileges from anybody. I had a lot of them myself. They're just part of the way the world works.
Sure.
It's just that the other people that don't have those have to have a fair opportunity to compete, right?
Yes.
And that's why people get so pissed off, because there's so many obstacles and pieces of the system
Well,
that
intentional
hold those people down
intentional obstacles too.
and rig the game so that only the people with those head starts and with those privileges
Can continue to
accumulate and find all this wealth. Anyway, it's
well,
just
and
a
to
really,
live the
like,
advantages of it. Like that's one of the things I noticed in 2020 that upset me, honestly, and somebody who's, like you, grown up and been lucky with most of my friends growing up had money and were in great privileged positions. And that never really, obviously I was a young boy. I didn't really fucking know what that meant or how it played into the grand scheme of things, but it is upsetting to know. And what you figure out the more people you meet, the older you get in the United States, it's upsetting to know that there are a large number of people with privilege and fortune and wealth who are actively going out of their way to allow or to prevent others from being able to achieve that. That's the most infuriating thing to me, because it is supposed to be the land of opportunity where anyone can come and achieve the American dream. And it's the confusing part of the American dream for white guys like you and me, because we were sold it and told it, and it was pretty much true for us. For us. We didn't really realize like that wasn't necessarily true at all for anybody else, or how it impacted other people, or what it looked like for others. So to unravel that in the grand scheme of things, it makes it all feel like a lie, and that's very upsetting. Like the part of the Constitution that's what is this? We're tired ending the near back end of a 3-hour recording session here, so give my brain a break. But all men created equal under God. Well, no. Not the fuck really. That was bullshit. It sounded awesome to me when I was 8, because I had never been given a reason to believe it wasn't true. Now I'm 33, and I've seen a million reasons to believe that's not true. So It's horseshit. And that's the anger for me. Like, things being predicated on bullshit upsets me. And then the more you dig, and yeah, man, look, I'm going to continue to watch all this wealthy porn shit because, frankly, it's gotten to a point where I'd rather watch, Hugh Grant and the Succession family blow their lives up and live miserably with all that money than I would to actually try to go get some myself and see what happens. Frankly, I'd rather watch the shows.
Yeah, I mean, it
seems miserable.
I don't point it out because I'm saying that we shouldn't make these TV shows anymore. It's
an interesting predicament.
It's just an interesting facet of American life. I mean, like Travis Scott was tweeting about this show, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like this was everybody was watching this. There's no reason to like pick this nit, but because when the TV reporter even said it, like I just thought I loved the way she. I love
that line.
Yeah, like we always say that we want to stick it to the rich, and then we never do. And in fact, we love the rich and we protect them at all costs. And it's just a really weird conundrum. And we get, at the very least, at least we had the night of, which although it didn't spend a lot of time with the victim's family, the person that was involved in the system was also not of a lot of means and was an immigrant. And so we saw there are other stories that give us a little taste of something different and show us the other side.
But in this case, that wasn't what we got.
At the end of the day, it still is very fun, and we can't help ourselves to watch and focus on the rich people, especially when everything is sliding off the rails and going out of control.
And in this show's instance, it did a very good job of portraying the I guess non-wealthy, privileged people in this show, mainly Miguel's family. Miguel, the little boy's name is Miguel, right? Miguel, and his mother and father, like they were only shown to us as pawns, as things to be used.
Yep.
We only saw those characters when they were being utilized for Hugh Grant's purposes and/or the court. Like, the show wasn't about them, and that was part of the message, that these people don't give a shit about those people. Really. Yeah. Even the doctor who fucking cured the little poor boy of cancer, he had to fuck his mom, ruin his whole family, and then murder her.
Yeah.
Bro, so yeah, no, I mean, look, there are a lot of ways you can look at that shit, but there is absolutely something to the extreme, like, what I don't even know, like sexy consumerism, like the dream of like just the never-ending wealth and
it's the dream, man.
Exuberance.
Even though we know it is not very likely, it's still part of the dream.
Not exuberance. That was not the word I was looking for. But yes, it is part of the dream, and it's a weird asset of America right now where we're like actively hate that, but it also is still part of the thing that we fundamentally believe about our country.
Yes, exactly.
Is that you could come here and become powerful, wealthy, build yourself into a position.
It's a weird conundrum, and one that we will continue to deal with
for the rest of our goddamn lives. Yeah, but The Undoing is over, and it was very good and quite good, and Barrett and I both enjoyed it. Happy to have all of you along for the ride that were there with us. We got to go, so I have one fucking thing to say.
Okay.
I finished The Queen's Gambit, and you were mostly right. We had covered everything we needed to cover.
Pretty much, yeah.
The one thing that was funny is how I was like, I just want to see what guy she ends up with. That's the only reason I'm watching this finale at this point. Not that I didn't love the show. And you were like, well, I think you might have a little bit of a surprise there for you. And it was all fucking 5 of them showing up to help her win the damn game against the Russian guy. And then, of course, the show not being, and of course, that was like a misogynistic, sexist way of me to look at it in the first place. Like, which guy will the girl end up with? But in the end, it has nothing to do with that. It's her literally walking through the park, and the point is sort of like this girl who started the show as a broken, abandoned, lonely orphan ends up in a position where she will literally never be alone in her life again if she doesn't want to be. All she has to do is walk into a park and find a chessboard, and literally everyone in that park will know who she is because she's become the most famous chess player, most successful chess player in the world.
God, I love chess.
Oh, the show was phenomenal. It made me feel nothing but the warm and fuzzies, and I loved that it had addiction and substance abuse and all this shit tied into it. I love that it didn't go with like the which guy was she ended up with, like My Simple Ass would have taken it. I thought they did a great job, and with both of these shows, both The Undoing and Queen's Gambit, look, I saw the same type of reaction, but it fell a little flat in the end. No, it didn't. You need some fucking absurd bang at the end or something. You're not getting that with every show. If you have a good show that's awesome all the way through, you just land the plane, dude.
Yep.
You don't try to do a 360. So everybody chill out. Queen's Gambit was fucking awesome.
It's a really weird thing. And I don't know what people like. To some degree, I understand what those critics are saying, because we're sitting here and we don't really have anything further to add after the finale, right?
Sure.
Like there's not, like, the show had pretty much everything, the interesting moments of the story really had all happened leading up to the big match in Russia, and then the final episode's the big match in Russia. Like you're saying, that's totally fine. You just got to land the plane. The show was great. It was amazing. It was a wonderful run. But yeah, we definitely have this weird thing going where we like expect to be wowed with the final episode of something.
And here's why I say that's impossible.
Just not
Barrett, we're all watching 20 shows a year. Television shows are more accessible than they've ever been. It is not possible for every story to end in a way that blows your freaking mind. That's insane to expect. So it pisses me off to some degree. There isn't going to be a season 2. You know what I'm saying? I don't think so anyway.
They're tossing it around.
God, that would be a little silly. I think you got a good ending there. Just leave it. But like The Undoing, there's not going to be a season 2. The finale didn't need to lead me into a place where I was like, Mother of God, I have to come back next year. It's just over. Find a new show. So, yeah, I don't get the complaining. I mean, at the same time, I do get where it comes from. I'm not with it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't. Right. I guess I understand the sentiment, but I certainly do not understand what you wanted or were expecting other than what you got.
Yeah, I don't either. Anyway,
it's great.
Undoing, Queen's Gambit.
2 really fun, wonderful shows.
Both done. Both had a blast watching them. Hope y'all did too. That will do it for today's episode of OCC, produced by Myrriah, Gossett, and Mike Moody Garcia of Permanent Record Studios in Austin, Texas. Huge thanks to our sponsors today, Echelon. Hit echelonfit.com/dragon to try any Echelon fitness equipment at home for 30 days. Also, felixgrayglasses.com/dragon. Go get yourself a pair of Felix Grays and support Barrett and I and the entire Clam fam. If you already have an Echelon and some Felix Grays, you can support us directly by going to patreon.com/oysters, clams, and cockles, because guess what? This week, we're watching Sopranos. The Sopranos, HBO, Season 1, Episode 1, ad-free coverage all year long, rest of 2020, all of 2021, The Sopranos. We're burning through the series. Barrett and I are going to watch episode by episode, do a podcast on every single episode. 1 episode per week. You will watch the show as it was meant to be watched by David Chase, HBO, and James Gandolfini. Nobody else had any input, just those 3 people and organizations. And the way that Barrett and I are going to be watching it. 1 per week, starting this week, Season 1, Episode 1, patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles this Thursday. If you're listening to this episode right now, you can go sign up on Patreon, join the tier that makes the most sense for you, support the show, get the ad-free Sopranos coverage that you so crave. Mollusk Militia, we're super stoked to offer y'all a bunch of stuff beyond the actual episode. I'm going to be doing a column recap. They might be briefer than you're imagining in your head if you're like, you're going to write 1,000 words for every episode. But for every episode we watch, 1 per week, I will be doing a short column recap.
Wow.
And review on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles, but only for the Mollusk Militia, Barrett. If you're in the Crustacean Nation, you're just going to get the episode. So check out the tiers, see what's available in both, and we're looking forward to a long rest of, a short rest of 2020, and then a long 2021 covering The Sopranos with y'all in what I hope will be just a vaccine-filled utopia of a year. 2021. We all know that's not going to happen. It'll probably be a shitstorm.
I'm going to get vaccinated like 8 times at least, minimum.
I'm just going to go get the 2, I think, the 2 rounds that are required. But if I
Suit
feel
yourself.
a third or
Suit
fourth,
yourself. Suit yourself.
if I feel a third or fourth is needed, I may go back in. Patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. Rest of 2020, all 2021, The Sopranos, The Sopranos, The Sopranos.
It's not TV. It's OCC.
It's not TV. It's OCC. The tiers are updated. Go to the website, patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. Get you some of this hot gabagool.
Forget about it.
And then forget about it. Thank you, Barrett. Follow us on social media. We're on Instagram at Oysters Clams Cockles. We're on Twitter at Clams and Cockles. Facebook.com/Oysters Clams Cockles. I'm Ross Bolin. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat at WR Bolin. And also catch me live on Twitch at twitch.tv/BossRollin a few times a week. Mr. Dudley, where can we follow you on the social medias?
Hit me at Barrett Dudley, Twitter and Instagram. Those are the only social medias. At Barrett Dudley is the only.
You're not a TikToker?
I have TikTok, but I don't post any videos.
Okay.
At Barrett Dudley. It's just at Barrett Dudley.
It's your name.
No dashes or underscores.
At BARRETT Dudley.
Those are the only official accounts for me. So any other accounts that may look or familiar or similar
present themselves as
present
you.
themselves are not me.
Those are fraudulent.
They are not me.
Fraudulent.
It's at Barrett Dudley. Those are the real ones.
They don't need no check mark to know that. You just at Barrett Dudley.
Yeah. I turned down a check mark. They're very 2018.
I don't like it, but I can't walk away from it. It's like the only thing I really got out of writing that book, you know, which is like just been this whole deal. So anyway, here we are. Go to Patreon right now and join the tiers. Do The Sopranos with us. If you don't, you'll regret it for the rest of your life and likely die alone. For everybody else, we're looking forward to starting The Sopranos with y'all. Hope you enjoyed today's episode and all the TV and film you've been watching. Come back next week for more on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube.com/Bolin Media if you want to watch our show. And, of course, Patreon is the only place for ad-free exclusive coverage of The Sopranos all through 2020 and 2021. Thank you very much. Until our next helping, goodbye, friends.